welcome to Live the Live and Love with You lifestyle self-love podcast. This podcast will inspire you, challenge you, and encourage you to venture into the art of evolving. Join me as we embark on the journey of self-love, learning how to fall in love with ourselves. My name is Liv, and I welcome you to the holistic approach to self-love. Sex and self-love. How do you think the two coexist? Does one affect the other? This is what we are going to be diving into today on our self-love journeys. Before we venture into this journey, let's first define what exactly we are discussing. Self-love can be easily defined as the love of oneself, the regard towards or the maintenance of one's happiness. Now, sex, on the other hand, definition is a little bit more complex. Depending on what point you are in your life, sex can mean many different things to you. If you are someone who has had sex before, based on your experiences, you have your own separate definition. Those who haven't had sex, your definition of the word may vary, depending on what you have heard, seen, or perceived it to be. In this sense, let's define sex as intimacy. This way, there's a common ground between those who had, those who haven't, and those who are somewhere in between. Intimacy is to share affection and vulnerability, a strong connection in an interpersonal relationship that involves physical or emotional sensation. Physically, intimacy can be characterized as something as juvenile as friendship, i.e., your best friend, or the way we'll be diving into it romantically, in a romantic manner which can be characterized as sexual activity, intercourse, or romantic love. Intimacy is passion in its purest form. This is the definition of sex, and this is the definition of love. Now we can dive into this journey of how the two coexist. Is it a positive relationship or a negative relationship, or is it somewhere in between based on how you use both concepts? I challenge you to identify where you are within your self-love journey. Do you really love yourself? Are you learning to love yourself, or are you struggling with low self-esteem? The answer to this question can help you identify the way you view sex or intimacy, as well as the way you use it, and how it could either be damaging or supporting towards your self-love journey. Let's look at how it can damage your self-love journey, how sex/intimacy can weaken self-love and the way that you love yourself. Self-love is one of the first forms of love you have consciously experienced. As a child, we run, and once we fall and are injured or hurt in any type of way, automatically, without question or direction, we lean towards and hug that area, support that area, and make ourselves feel better. We all then call on to our parents for further support and guidance. But did you notice that first you took care of yourself? You were your support system and aid. This is something we have been doing since we were children, but somewhere in the space of growing up, we tend to lose that. For some reason, although love of the self-love is one of the first forms of love we experience, there is this belief that our quote-unquote first love, our first love, is one that is given to us by somebody else outside of ourselves. One that is given to us via interpersonal relationships, via significant other. He or she was my quote-unquote first love. This first love experience is dictated through the intimate experience that is given to us through these significant others, such as kindness, care, love, and support. But what about the love, support, care, and kindness you have been showing and giving yourself? Doesn't that count? I look at this as weakening towards the self-love journey and the way that we love ourselves. I say this because now it has been set in stone that we can only get this type of love, support, care, and approval through intimacy, through a significant other. Now, the love we have been given ourselves no longer can suffice. It has now lost its value. There has been nights where I was alone, sad, and I cried. And I was my support system. Every time I took care of myself, stood up for myself, respected myself. Every time I looked in the mirror and cracked a smile, laughed at my own joke, or took some time out of my busy day to give myself time, me time. All of those are acts of love. I declare that to be the first love. Guess this is why they say love is a drug. Of course, depending on how you actually define love. So now this becomes something we crave. We begin to search for validation and approval, looking for it not through ourselves, but through intimacy or some form of relationship. If we do not get this intimacy, we suddenly no longer feel desirable. There is a point in life when one begins to have physical, intimate relationships or sex. If we did not fully take care of ourselves before that, validate ourselves, and assure ourselves before the act, then we have now put ourselves in a trap where this sex now validates the degree to which we are desired. Because now we only feel desirable if someone is desiring us. This intimacy now validates our body image, how we feel about ourselves, and could also be the blueprint of the way that we love ourselves. Before we continue, let's do a quick poll. How many of you, after the fact of having that intimate moment, after the fact of having sex, shortly after, started to feel a little bit worse about yourself? Even if it was only for a second, there was a small negative thought that ran across your mind. How many of you, at some point afterwards, started to question yourself with questions such as, am I good enough? Was I good enough? And why did he or she choose me? Don't worry, no need to show hands. In my opinion, I believe this thought tends to cross minds because it is the first moment when you realize that you no longer hold the full validation over yourself. The validation that you used to give yourself no longer can suffice, and you realize that in that moment when you are most vulnerable, that someone else now holds that validation. I would like to hear your thoughts on that. That's still up for debate. It's my personal opinion. This leads me to my next poll question. What are we seeking in these forms of love, sex, and intimacy? Are we really seeking the pleasure, bond, and connection that sex promises us? Or are we simply seeking validation and approval? I speak from experience. I was in a long distance relationship that ended after about 2 to 3 years. I was hoping that sex will validate our love for each other. I can prove to him and he can prove to me exactly how much we love each other. I found that I will have many negative thoughts running across my mind after the act. Many thoughts of was I, will I, and could I? I then started realizing that I was looking for validation and both of us was searching for approval. Sex is tricky because when we're not looking, it likes to impersonate love. Intimacy soon took over our relationship, being the only way that we knew how to show each other that we loved each other. During this relationship, I was not at my best within my self love journey. It is clear to me now that I was using that relationship for all the wrong reasons. I was looking for all the wrong things in all the wrong places, searching for validation and approval and love through the acts of intimacy. Although I was in a committed relationship, does not make it okay. Sex becomes harmful to your self love journey when it is used for all the wrong reasons. When it is used as an escape versus being used for human connection. When it is used for validation versus passion. Now, don't get me wrong, sex is a beautiful thing. It is natural, human, and it creates families and unique bonds between two people that love each other. It expresses your love language in a way that cannot be spoken. On the other hand, I believe that sex and self love can both coexist to create something beautiful. Sex/intimacy can support your self love journey by boosting your sexual confidence. It can validate and reaffirm your own affirmations. Validate yourself. Nonetheless, sex can affect your self love journey, either in a positive light or in a negative light. It is the way in which it is used and experienced that determines the type of effect it will have on your self love journey. It requires self awareness to challenge yourself, to ask yourself, why do I want this intimacy? Or need this intimacy? In other words, why do I want to have sex? Is it societal pressures? Peer pressures? Is it simply wanting that warm bond and connection with a significant other? Is it because you don't love yourself, or is it because you do love yourself? Deciding if it's going to be more harmful towards the way you love yourself and treat yourself, or is it going to be supportive towards your self love journey? It all comes down to being self aware and understanding and identifying what you are searching for when you begin to search outside of yourself. To close, I leave you with this question: does sex lead to self love, or does self love lead to sex? And if so, which route would you rather take? Which route do you think will last longer and help you achieve your goals and strengthen your self confidence? For me, personally, I have chosen the route of self love would lead to sex. I have chosen to first take care of myself and to validate myself and to love myself. Once reached, I will then look for the love that I know that I cannot single-handedly provide for myself. A love that is combined with my self-love and the love that my significant will have for himself. Joining it together to then love each other and once ready, love each other in a way that words cannot explain. Thank you for listening to Live the Live and Love with You Lifestyle Self-Love Podcast, the podcast that will inspire, challenge, and encourage you to venture into the art of evolving, falling in love with yourself. My name is Liv, and I hope to see you every Sunday to live and love with you.